Welcome back. Last week we were studying from John chapter 1, and we learned that Yeshua, was named the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world, described by Yochanan, John the baptizer, John the one who put people under in water, and one who was questioned by the Prushim and the Sadducees and the Pharisees. And in the midst of that, the disciples of John, some of them began to follow Yeshua. Now, this week, we're going to read from chapter 2, starting at verse 1, with our reader, Jonathan.
John, Yochanan, chapter 2. On Tuesday, there was a wedding at Cana in the Galilee, and the mother of Yeshua was there. Yeshua, too, was invited to the wedding, along with his Talmudim. The wine ran out, and Yeshua's mother said to him, "They have no more wine." Yeshua replied, "Mother, why should that concern me? Or you? My time hasn't come yet." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now 6 stone water jars were standing there for the Jewish ceremonial washings, each with a capacity of 20 or 30 gallons. Yeshua told them, "Fill the jars with water," and they filled them to the brim. He said, "Now draw some out and take it to the man in charge of the banquet." And they took it. The man in charge tasted the water, but had now turned into wine. He did not know where it had come from, but the servants who had drawn the water knew. So he called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone else serves the good wine first, and the poorer wine after the people have drunk freely. But you have kept the good wine until now." This is the first of Yeshua's miraculous signs he did at Cana in the Galilee. He manifested his glory, and his Talmudim came to trust in him. Afterwards, he, his mother and brothers, and his Talmudim went down to Capharnaum and stayed there a few days.
And we'll pause there. So, here we are with the first miracle that Yeshua performed. And it's interesting in that his mother was there in the midst of that time, and they were at a wedding, and his mother came to him and said that they don't have any more wine. And his reply was, "What does that have to do with us?" And obviously mom insisted, because she didn't even stop but to say, "Do whatever he tells you." So, there in the midst of that was stone water jars. There were 6 of them, and their capacity was between 20 gallons and 30 gallons. So on the low end, 20 times 6 is 120, so 120 gallons worth of wine. And on the top end, at 30 gallons, 30 times 6 would be 180 gallons of wine. So they put water in those jars, and then when they drew out the best wine that anyone had tasted. So it's interesting in the midst of that's Yeshua's first miracle, and that's where he manifested his glory, and his Talmudim came to trust him. Afterwards, he, his mother, and his brothers, and his Talmudim went down to Capharnaum and stayed there a few days. Verse 13.
It was almost time for the festival of Pesach in Yehuda. So Yeshua went up to Jerusalem. In the temple grounds he found those who were selling cattle, sheep, and pigeons, and others who were sitting at tables exchanging money. He made a whip from cords and drove them all out of the temple grounds, the sheep and cattle as well. He knocked over the money changers' tables, scattering their coins, and to the pigeon sellers he said, "Get these things out of here. How dare you turn my father's house into a market?" His Talmudim later recalled that the Tanakh said, "Zeal for your house will devour me." So, the Judeans confronted him by asking him, "What miraculous sign can you show us to prove you have the right to do all this?" Yeshua answered them, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will rise it up again." The Judeans said, "It took 46 years to build this temple, and you're going to raise it in 3 days?" But the temple he had spoken of was his body. Therefore, when he was raised from the dead, his Talmudim remembered that he had said this, and they trusted in the Tanakh and in what Yeshua had said. Now, while Yeshua was in Jerusalem at the Pesach festival, there were many people who believed in his name. When they saw the miracles he performed, but he did not commit himself to them, for he knew what the people are like. That is, he didn't need anyone to inform him about a person because he knew what was in the person's heart.
It was almost time for the festival of Pesach in Yehuda. So Yeshua went up to Jerusalem. So Pesach, Passover, it was a Passover time. And in the midst of that Passover time, because it was a time to go to Jerusalem, he ended up going up to Jerusalem. And there on the temple grounds, he found those who were selling cattle, sheep, and pigeons. There on the temple grounds themselves. And he knocked over those tables. And his Talmudim later recalled that the Tanakh says, "Zeal for your house will devour me." Let's turn to Psalm 69:10. I am estranged, I'll start in verse 9. I am estranged from my brothers, an alien to my mother's children, because zeal for your house is eating me up, and on me are falling the insults of those insulting you. Yeshua, so the Judeans confronted him by asking him, "What miraculous sign can you show us to prove you have the right to do all this?" Yeshua answered them, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up again." The Judeans said, "It took 46 years to build this temple, and you're going to raise it in 3 days?" But the temple he had spoken of was his body. And that's the end of chapter 2.